So this is the second webinar for our medical laboratory science program that the Mitchell Institute is offering in Nova Scotia. So Megan and I are just going to quickly introduce the general medical laboratory science program, and then I'll let the folks from Nova Scotia come in and say a few words, then we will move on with the entire admissions process for this program. So yeah, my name is Emma. I am the student recruitment officer at the Mitchell Institute. And Megan, did you want to come on and just introduce yourself quickly?
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Christie. I'm the Senior Admissions Advisor at the Mitchell Institute.
Alrighty. And with that, let's get started. So this is the agenda for today. So we'll start with a land acknowledgement, and then we'll move on to the introduction, both the general one from us and then the special Nova Scotia one from the folks in Nova Scotia. And then we'll move on to the full application process, and we'll talk about what happens after you submit your application. We'll give you a brief rundown of the tuition fees, and then we'll end with a quick Q&A. So I did want to do a land acknowledgement. The Mitchell Institute, the campus is situated in downtown Toronto. So we acknowledge the sacred land where we are today, which has been and continues to be the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River, among many other unnamed and unrecognized Indigenous communities. At this location, we stand on land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty between the Anishinaabe, Mississaugas, and the Haudenosaunee that bound them to share the territory and protect the land. We recognize this agreement not as a thing of the past, but as a promise today and into the future. We must share the responsibility of ensuring the dish is never empty by taking care of the land and the creatures we share it with, and transforming our personal and institutional relationships. This meeting place is still home to many Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and learn on this land. We urge you, as future Canadian healthcare practitioners and leaders, to acknowledge that it is our collective responsibility to strengthen our ties within the communities we serve and practice healthcare in a way that advances the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's 7 health-related recommendations, and practice your profession in that spirit. And with that, I will hand it over to Megan to do a quick rundown of the medical laboratory science program.
Thanks, Emma. All right, so the Medical Laboratory Science program trains medical laboratory technologists, and they are health professionals who perform laboratory tests and provide information to physicians. So Mitchell's laboratories are equipped with up-to-date equipment, including a variety of automated lab analyzers, which allows students the opportunity to practice in both small groups and independently. And Mitchell's program teaches 5 core disciplines, so clinical chemistry, hematology, histotechnology, microbiology, and transfusion science.
Thanks so much, Megan. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to the folks from Nova Scotia just to do a quick rundown of this program.
Thanks very much, Emma. Good evening, everyone. My name is Greg Ells. I'm a Senior Executive Director here with in Advanced Education. And I just wanted to take a couple minutes to explain what the opportunity is here with the MLT program at Michener. So within Nova Scotia, we are experiencing a shortage of med lab technologists. And even though we have a program at the Nova Scotia Community College that has an annual intake of 40 students and it's a 3-year program, so they graduate after 3 years. Even with that program running, we are still experiencing a shortfall in our MLT workforce. So we have developed this agreement with Michener to help us have a period of time where we have an additional intake of MLT students so that we can try to eliminate that shortfall as soon as possible. What all of that means is that MLTs graduating here in Nova Scotia are pretty much guaranteed of a job in the workforce immediately upon graduation. We have colleagues here from Nova Scotia Health, which is the employer of MLTs in Nova Scotia, and they can speak to the employment opportunities and explain a bit about that. So I'll ask them to speak at some point in this evening about that. We also have on a line, I believe, someone who has worked as a med lab technologist for a number of years and would be able to provide anyone who has any questions about what the job is really about. He would be able to fill you in on those details. So please feel free to ask any questions along those lines if you like. We also have with us someone from our student assistance office. So if anyone has any questions around what kind of provincial student assistance or federal student assistance might be available to support those in this program, we can try to answer your questions along those lines as well. So also appearing on the screen here with me is Joe Meehan, who is our health education strategist, and Joe has been doing most of the work around organizing this program for us. So Joe, is there anything that I've left out that we should mention as an introduction?
No, that's great, Greg. If anyone has any questions on the Nova Scotia Community College program, please reach out to us using the Study Healthcare email that you have seen in the past, and we can certainly make sure that any questions that you have about the NSCC program are answered. Our goal is to have 40 seats filled Michener online, as well as the 40 in-person seats at our Dartmouth campus of the NSCC. So thanks, everyone.
And Joe has just triggered a thought with me. I should perhaps explain a little bit about how this program would run. So as most of you may know, Michener is an institution in Ontario, in Toronto, but the agreement that we have worked out with Michener would allow students to study here in Nova Scotia. So there will be no need to relocate to Toronto for any part of this program. The plan is that the in-class work will be conducted primarily online here in Nova Scotia. And when it comes time to do the lab and clinical component, you will be doing that in facilities operated by Nova Scotia Health, all here in Nova Scotia. So if anyone's concerned about having to relocate to Toronto for any part of this program, that will not be necessary. Everything will be provided here in Nova Scotia. So with that, if I could just ask if there are any questions before we return to the main part of the presentation. There'll be plenty of opportunity after the presentation to ask questions. So Emma, nothing coming in terms of questions?
Nope, not that I can see.
So I'll turn it back over to you then, Emma. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm just going to post this quick link in here. This is the list of kind of a total rundown of the MLS curriculum. So all of the different classes that you'd be taking. So that is kind of our summary of everything. So if you want to take a look at that while we're going through the presentation, you are welcome to do that. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Megan actually to continue with the application process.
Thanks, Emma. All right, so if you're interested, that we use a 5-step process for the application process to kind of break it down into simple steps. So you've decided to join us, you need to make sure you review the admission requirements. So we'll be sharing those on the next slide. So after that, you'll be looking at preparing your supporting documents. Again, we'll list those on the next slides as well. And number 3 is a little bit different. We typically do our applications through Ontario colleges. So for this particular program with Nova Scotia, you actually have to submit your application through Michener self-service. And the deadline is April 30th. And the application fee will be $110. After you do that, you'll receive an acknowledgement email from Michener, which will have your Michener ID in it. And then you'll register and complete your Casper test, which is a requirement for admission. And after that, we'll be submitting those supporting documents. So an important deadline there is May 7th is your first document deadline. Next slide, Emma. All right, so those admission requirements that we were just talking about. So we have our educational requirements. We have a minimum of 70% in one academic math. So these are the Nova Scotia equivalents that we've listed here for you. So we need a Math 12, Advanced Math 12, Pre-Calculus or Calculus 12. We also need 1 of English, so English 12 or English 12 African Heritage, Chemistry 12, and either a Biology 12 or Physics 12. We do strongly recommend the biology. It is useful for preparing you for the course, or for the program rather. And then we also do require 2 additional grade 12 subjects. So these can be any subjects. They're just additional courses that you require. So we do need all of those courses at a 70% or higher. And you need an overall average of those courses at a 75%. The other requirement is the Casper that I mentioned before. So this is a mandatory admissions assessment. It's a computer-based assessment, which is sampling personal characteristics. Next slide. All right. Next step is to prepare those supporting documents. So we do require documents by May 7th, 2023. So we'll need your high school transcripts and any post-secondary transcripts if needed or if you have them. Now, if you've completed your education outside of Canada, you will need to have your education verified by a credential assessment, and you may also be required to complete an English language assessment. I'd suggest visiting our internationally educated applicants webpage just for some more information. And another note as well, we do require official documents, and those are submitted directly by your institution for them to be considered official. All right, next step is to apply online. So as I mentioned, we're not applying through Ontario colleges for this program. You're applying through Michener self-service, and you're going to pay the $110 application fee. After you submit that fee, you'll receive an acknowledgement email, which we send out usually on a weekly, maybe bi-weekly basis. And that email will include an 6-digit Michener ID, which is prepended by 3 zeros. So remember, April 30th is that application deadline, and unfortunately, we can't accept any late applications. So mark that in your calendar. All right, next up is to register and complete the Casper. So you've received that acknowledgement email, you've got your Michener ID, you're going to register for the Casper and complete the assessment. You'll need to make sure that you put Michener on your distribution list with Casper, and that will send your results directly to us. I believe the distribution fee is about $15, maybe about $14, $15, and the test itself is about $40, I believe, but all the prices are available on the Casper website. All right, and as I've mentioned before, these document deadlines are very important. So application deadline, remember, is April 30th, but you have about a week after to submit those supporting documents. So May 7th is your in progress document deadline. So if you have any courses that you need to retake, that you're wanting to do before you, or that you need to meet the requirements, make sure you submit proof of enrollment by May 7th. And then you'll need to provide proof of completion using an official transcript by July 12th. And just a little note there as well, all documents will need to be submitted by your institution for them to be considered official. All right. Now, after you've submitted your application, what happens next? We'll take the time to evaluate your application. And unfortunately, we can't provide any updates regarding any applications during that time. We're expecting to send offers out in May. There's a little typo there. So application deadline is April 30th. We'll send out offers in May to the top ranked applicants, and then they'll be given a deadline in their offer to accept their offer via Michener self-service and to pay a non-refundable deposit of $500. All right, and these are the expected tuition fees for 2023-2024. I won't read them out to you. I'll just kind of leave them up here for a moment so you can review those.
Thanks so much, Megan. Yeah, so a few more seconds to look over those tuition fees. They are also posted on our website, so you can take a look at those as well. Alrighty, so I believe that is all for our main kind of admissions process content. Does anyone have any questions either to ask us or to ask Nova Scotia folks? I think we have one in here. So Holly just asked if NSCC has my Casper, can you access it? I actually don't know to answer that question. Does anyone know?
I can probably answer that. So it will depend on the test that's required for NSCC. And I mentioned the distribution list before. So what you need to do is add Michener onto your distribution list, and then pay the $14 or $15 to have your results sent to Michener.
Thanks so much, Megan. Any other questions? You can put them in the Q&A or into the chat box. Don't be shy. I think there's an anonymous feature too if you want to ask him about your name. So Alicia just asked, besides Nova Scotia student loans, will the NSHA be offering funding for current NSHA employees? Anyone from the Nova Scotia folks maybe answer that?
So that would be probably me. So I'm Nancy McConnell-Maxner. I work for Nova Scotia Health. And for current employees, we have had conversations. So what I would say would be to reach out to me at some point, if you're Nova Scotia Health, already a Nova Scotia Health employee, just to have a conversation about what opportunities might be there for potential support separate from the Nova Scotia government work.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy. Any other questions? Oh, Sarah just asked, where is the lab portion of the coursework going to take place? Also, is there credit during the application process for post-secondary education?
So I can answer the first part of that, and then I think it'll be Michener for the second part of that, and I would suspect. So from the lab portion will depend on where you're geographically located in the province. So because the program through Michener is a distance learning program, aside from the lab pieces, they'll be held within Nova Scotia Health, and we'll accommodate that depending on where you're located. So depending on where you live, Sarah would really determine where the lab component would take place, if that's what you're asking. And I'll pass over to the Michener people for the other part. Yes, I was just going to put that in my.
Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, I can answer the, I believe that you're asking about transfer credits. So transfer credits are determined once you're accepted into the program. So with those provided transcripts that you provide, you can apply for transfer credit. There's like a whole process. We can provide the link for that as well. But those are determined again once you've obtained admission.
Thanks, everyone. That's great. So Paul just asked, is there any further details on the return of service plan? I don't know if that's a Nova Scotia question.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, Nancy, if we finalized that.
It's not finalized yet. So yeah.
We will be finalizing that in the coming weeks, if not sooner. So we'll certainly be sending out the return of service information to everybody on our list, just so everyone's aware of what the return of service will be. Just so you know, Emma, Greg had to step off. He's dealing with a family emergency. So he is no longer on the call.
Okay, thank you, Drew. So another question we have here is from Jessica. So it says, how will the program work? Is there scheduled online classes or independent online learning? I believe from our last webinar, it's an online synchronous format for the lecture portion. So you would be online at a certain time, but I don't think the classes are in person. And then the laboratories, I believe, would be in person. If anyone wants to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what we said last time. Hopefully I'm right about that. Any other questions from anyone?
And do you want to explain what asynchronous is for those who may be in high school and may not be familiar with this vocabulary, Emma?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so asynchronous basically means you're doing it on your own time. So it's the absence of syncing. So you don't have to watch it all at a certain time. Professor either records the lecture and just sends it to you. You can watch it whenever you want, or there is no recorded lecture and you're just doing work independently whenever you have the chance. Synchronous would be like this. We're all gathering on Zoom at a certain time and the professor is lecturing, and then you have to show up at that certain time. So I believe the classes for this program are going to be the latter of those two options. So the synchronous. So you would be required to be online at a certain time for the lecture, but it's not an in-person lecture for the most part. And I will just put in the list of classes again in case anyone missed that. So this is the page on our website that has all the classes in the medical laboratory science program.
And I guess I'd just like to speak from the Nova Scotia Health perspective too. Yeah, I think the understanding would be, so if you think of it as being like a full-time academic program, like if you were going to NSCC as a comparable program, it would be a full-time program. It would be the same concept, even so your courses might be synchronous online, not in person, but the lab pieces would be in person and the time commitment would be equivalent to a full-time program.
So Paul just asked another question. So there may be a couple of Cape Breton students wondering if the CBRH in Sydney will be a teaching site.
So yes, yeah. So we'll work with wherever. Yeah. So the Cape Breton Regional Hospital would be a great example of one of the regional sites that would have pretty much everything that would be needed from a lab component. Depending on some of the smaller centers people they might need to travel to the nearest regional site because we wouldn't have all of the equipment that might be needed at some of the smaller facilities. So we would have in each zone, if you know the zones in Nova Scotia, we have the 4 different zones. So in each zone we would have, there might be minimal travel required, but we will work with whatever geographic region the students are in for the most part.
Awesome. Thanks, Nancy. Any other questions?
Just a comment, Emma, just reminding everyone, this is a very challenging program, a very rewarding program, but this is definitely a full-time program. So you're really going to have to watch your work hours. The course load is fairly intense. So we just want to make sure that for those who are thinking that maybe they could work full-time and do this program full-time, that's really not the design of this online model. We certainly want your focus to be your priority focus should be this program. Thanks.
Thanks, Drew. And I think Lisa just asked to see the tuition slide again, so I'm just putting that back up there. And yeah, Megan also put it in the chat as well. So someone just asked about the return of service agreement. I think we answered that previously. It was we're still working
to be
on it.
determined.
Yeah, to be TBD.
We will. We're working out those details.
All right, sounds good. All right, any other questions?
I'm just wondering, Emma, is there are you the person to talk about student supports at Michener for students who are online?
I'm not the best person to talk about that. I don't know if Megan has anything more to say about it, but I am not. So
Miranda would be a perfect person to mention it, but
yeah, I think so.
yeah, I believe students will be able to access all the same supports. I think that might still be worked out at the moment, but yeah, there's lots of supports like student support network and things like, or student success network rather. I can provide the link in the chat just for people to review, and I'm sure that information will be solidified soon.
Yeah, Megan, and even if you want to wait and just confirm that with Miranda, just so everyone knows, one of the key contributors to these sessions was unavailable tonight. So maybe Megan, you and I can discuss this later in the week just to make sure that we're sending out the right information to the students. We can certainly confirm that with Miranda when she's back. So thank you for that, Megan.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We can probably send out another email, Emma, today and just provide some more details on that following the session, maybe tomorrow. Or this week.
For sure. Yeah. So Paul's asking about the loan forgiveness. So is the loan part provincial and part federal? Is this going to be automatic upon graduating, or is this still undecided?
That would be Ken Byron. Ken, would you like to handle that question?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, great question. And yes, it will be eligible for loan forgiveness. So meaning that your provincial student loan would be forgiven upon graduation. I think that answers it.
Thanks, Ken. Paul, I hope that answered your question. So Holly's asking, will graduates be nationally certified?
The question is, yes, Missioner is an accredited MLT program in excellent standing. So once you pass the certification exam, you would be licensed to work anywhere in Canada. But we would much prefer if you're working in Nova Scotia.
Thanks, Drew. Any other questions?
Just a comment, just so everyone knows, and those who are still in high school, so that you do qualify for Nova Scotia student assistance with this program, the same as you would, I believe, Ken, as any other program that is based in Nova Scotia. Is that correct, Ken?
Sure is, Joe. So yeah, we'll treat it like any other program that we fund. The biggest difference being that normally when you study outside of Nova Scotia, you're not eligible for loan forgiveness or the 20%, 40% of Nova Scotia student bursary. Nova Scotia student grant. So those have been removed though. So to be like studying this, you have the same benefits or advantages of studying in a institution that was in Nova Scotia.
That's right. So you wouldn't get those benefits, Ken, if the program, for example, was in New Brunswick.
That's correct. If the program's available in Nova Scotia, and you're studying outside of Nova Scotia, then normally those benefits are not available. However, because the program is being offered by the province, the decision was made to extend those benefits like the student was studying inside the province.
And Ken, I think there's another question here for you from Paul. It's how much is the loan, sorry, how much of the loan is provincial and how much is federal? And is the federal portion not forgivable?
The federal portion is not forgivable that I'm aware of. So certainly there's the federal loan is up to $210 a week times the number of weeks. And I think this is a 40-week program. Does that sound right, Joe? Is it 40 weeks and 40 weeks?
I'll have to check back on that, how many weeks Ken, but I believe that's roughly the academic year. Yep.
Sure, no worries. So so it's $210 per week times 40 weeks. If the student still had need after that, which I suspect they would based on the amount of tuition that I believe is being charged, they would then receive provincial funding, which is $200 per week. And that is split up with 120 in loan and 80 in grant per week. And again, as I identified earlier, that 120 per week would be eligible for loan forgiveness. Does that answer the question?
I think so, yeah. Thanks, Ken.
All right.
Any other questions for anyone? Don't see anything. Okay, so I will move on then. Oh, wait, might have one more. Oh, Paul just said thanks. Thanks, Paul. All right. So if you do have any questions or you think of, oh, another question. Oh, so Sarah just asked, are there any program specific scholarships or bursaries?
I'm not sure, Emma, if does the Missioner itself have scholarship and bursary opportunities for your students, and I'm not sure if this pilot would qualify.
I am not positive either. I think that might be a Miranda question. But again, yeah, I will send out an email and then we can get back to you on that for more accurate information for sure.
Yeah, besides the student bursary that Ken mentioned, there's no further bursaries available. The cost to the province to offer this program is significant. We're putting quite a bit of investment in these 40 seats. So thanks for that. And we'll definitely get back to you when we check in with Miranda.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Somebody just asked it, how is the venipuncture training conducted? I don't know if anyone's able to answer that.
It's like, that's probably supposed to be me, and I'd say that's a very good question.
Yeah.
So I think what we would say to anything that's a clinical competency that would need to be achieved, we would offer that education in the lab, but it would be in conjunction with whatever's happening from the whatever's within scope of the program, through the academic piece, through the classroom part with Michener, and then the in-person stuff within Nova Scotia Health.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, oh, we got 2 more chats. Oh, that's just Sarah filling out the other question. Okay. All right. So I think that is everything. I will keep on lookout for the other questions if they come in while I'm talking. But if you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask here, or if you just want to ask us more privately, we do have an email. This is our admissions team email, submissions@michener.ca. We're also on these 4 social media websites. They kind of post all of our events that are happening, our upcoming programs, all that great stuff. So feel free to follow us on there as well. I think we had one more chat. So that's another question. Oh, there's Paul saying that I'm sure venipuncture is taught in the hospitals like other lab components. Thanks, Paul. All right, great. I'm just gonna do one last call. Is there any other questions, or does anyone else want to make any comments or any last words before we wrap up? No?
Just from the province's side, we just want to thank everyone for joining the session tonight. Certainly, if there's any questions that you have and you want that were not answered, please reach out to us on the studyhealthcare.ca email as well. If you have any questions on the NSCC program, reach out to us and we'll make sure you're in contact to the right person. So again, 40 in-person seats at the NSCC. Their deadline for admissions is April 30th, and 40 online seats at Michener with the lab components and the clinical components, utilizing the Nova Scotia Health Authority. If there's any questions you have on that, please reach out to us. We're really, really interested in you, and hopefully you're interested in this program. So we just want to thank everyone for taking the time out this evening, and we will answer your questions as soon as we can. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Joe. So I think we have one more question. This might be for, oh, Nancy's typing. Okay, or Nancy,
Yeah,
if you want to answer.
I was going to type the answer, but yeah. So if you send an email to my email address that I put in the chat box, just send me an email if you're looking to do some job shadowing, or even just to have a conversation with MLTs that are working in the system to find out more about what the role is and what it entails. And I think that's a really important part of career exploration, is figuring out, is it really what you want to do if you're making this investment of time and commitment to education. It would be good to talk to some MLTs about the work. And so just reach out to me and we'll make a connection wherever you are geographically in the province. We can facilitate that for you.
Great. Alrighty. Okay, are there any other questions? Well, I keep doing last call and then I keep getting questions.
No,
Right.
I see some suggestions in the chat box, Emma, and absolutely agree with you, Paul, that we are going to be going old school. I think this is a real opportunity for some of the higher populated areas of the province, like the Cape Breton municipality, regional municipality, that we have this opportunity. We are going to be exploring the old school, Nancy. So Paul's the old guard like Greg and I are. We talk a lot about social media, but we really want to see the radio and print ads out there as well, in big, bold, black and white, to make sure that everyone in the province is aware of this outstanding opportunity that we're creating for students. So we're going to be reaching out to BSc students, graduating students. We're really going to be marketing this as much as we can. And just to remind, Emma, I saw earlier in your presentation, so have you made the decision that you are going to extend the application deadline to May 7th? Is that correct?
I'm not positive on that. I believe Grace still has to talk to Miranda about that, but
yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe Megan, it was, I thought I saw a reference to May 7th, but was that for something else?
Yeah, I haven't heard about an extension, so that might Yeah,
Okay.
May 7th is the document deadline, but
document
April
deadline,
30th
okay.
is the application deadline right now.
Okay, very good. Okay. That's wonderful. Thanks.
All right. Okay, I'm going to end this. I hope everybody got the questions that they wanted to. But yeah, as always, like if you have any other questions you didn't get a chance to ask, feel free to email the email that you see there. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and have a wonderful night. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Emma. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye.